There are some stories that they stick with you. They get under your skin, and they ask this really terrifying question. What happens when all the rules just disappear? For decades now, William Golding's Lord of the Flies has been that exact story. It's this haunting look at what's bubbling right under the surface of our civilized world. So let's dive in and see why this book is still such a chilling and honestly, such a powerful thought experiment.
So this was the question that Golding actually posed to his wife, and it was a total challenge to all those romantic adventure stories he grew up with. See, he wasn't interested in some tale about plucky kids who bravely overcome everything. No, he wanted to run an experiment on human nature itself, to strip away all the adults, all the structure, and just see what happens.
All right, so here's the setup. We're in the middle of a war and a plane carrying a bunch of British schoolboys is being evacuated. But it crashes. They end up stranded on this remote, totally uninhabited island. No adults, no authority, nobody to tell them what to do. It's just them, the sun, the sand, and the jungle.
And you know what? At first, it kind of seems like it's going to work. They find a conch shell to call meetings, they actually hold a vote and elect a leader, this charismatic kid named Ralph, and they even lay out their top priorities: build shelters, have some fun, and the big one, the most important rule, keep a signal fire going so they can get rescued. It's this really noble attempt to rebuild the world they just lost.
But see, this is where it gets deep. This isn't just an adventure story. Golding packs this novel with so many layers of meaning, turning the whole thing into an allegory. And the first layer we see is through the objects the boys use. They aren't just things, they're symbols of the very civilization they're trying so desperately to hold on to.
Each one of these things is this fragile link back to their old world. Take the conch. It gives everyone a voice. If you're holding it, you get to speak. It's literally democracy in a seashell. Then there's Piggy's glasses. That's all about intellect, science, rational thought. They're the only tool they have to make fire. And that signal fire? Well, that's their hope. It's their one tangible connection back to the world.
And then, this happens. This quote describes the brutal climax of their collapse. When that giant rock is dropped, it doesn't just kill Piggy, who's the voice of logic and reason. It shatters the conch. So, with the death of reason, the symbol of order is literally blown to pieces. Civilization on the island, it's gone.
So this breakdown, it isn't just about survival anymore. It's getting political. As the boys' little society fractures, the island becomes this tiny stage for a huge ideological struggle, a battle for the soul of their group. Let's see how that division really takes shape.
So on one side, you have Ralph. He's the elected leader. He's all about rules, responsibility, doing things for the good of the group. His main goal is to keep order so they can all get rescued. But on the other side, you've got Jack. He represents this primal urge for power. He rules through fear, through ritual, and the absolute thrill of the hunt. He's offering them something instant, meat and excitement, instead of some far-off hope of rescue. And boom, there it is. That's the definitive break. Ralph is desperately trying to hold on to order, yelling about the rules. And Jack's response says it all. He's not just bending the rules anymore. He is rejecting the entire concept of rules. He's basically arguing that might makes right. Their strength, their savagery, that's the new law now. It's a really chilling pivot from democracy to a totalitarian tribe.
But Golding, he goes even deeper. The fight isn't just political. It becomes psychological, maybe even spiritual. As the boys slide further and further into savagery, they become obsessed with this monster they start calling the Beast. But what are they really afraid of?
To really understand the Beast, you just have to look at the title of the book. Lord of the Flies is a direct translation of Beelzebub, which is a biblical name for a very powerful demon. Golding is not being subtle here at all. He's telling us the evil on this island has a name, and it's a name humanity has known for a very, very long time. So their fear just grows and grows. They start seeing shadows in the trees. They mistake a dead parachutist for this monster. And Jack, of course, uses this fear to grab more power, promising to hunt and kill the Beast. The only problem is, he's hunting in the wrong place. The real threat isn't lurking out there in the jungle.
This is the novel's most terrifying revelation. It's spoken to the quiet, mystical kid Simon by a pig's head that the hunters left on a stick. The Lord of the Flies is literally mocking the boys for looking for some monster outside of themselves. The beast, the savagery, their capacity for evil, it was never out there. It was inside of them all along.
So you have to wonder, where did this incredibly dark view of humanity come from? Well, to understand Golding's novel, you really have to understand Golding's War. His vision wasn't just some philosophical theory, it was forged in the absolute fires of World War II. See, Golding wasn't just some writer in a quiet study. He was a soldier. In 1944, he commanded a landing craft during the D-Day landings. He was right there in one of the most brutal invasions in history. He saw firsthand the shocking violence that civilized people were capable of inflicting on one another.
And this was his devastating conclusion. Just think about that for a second. This is from a man who fought against the Nazis. For Golding, the evil he witnessed wasn't some kind of foreign disease unique to his enemies. He came to believe that the potential for that same horror exists inside every single person, just held in check by the thin veneer of society. So when you boil it all down, Lord of the Flies is Golding's way of shouting back at the idea that people are inherently good. He argued that civilization isn't our natural state. It's just this fragile set of rules we build to contain the darkness inside us, the innate savagery that he believed was our true nature.
Golding's argument is powerful. It's bleak, sure, but it feels true, right? Especially when you think about the 20th century. But what if he was wrong? What if his experiment, when you actually run it in the real world, gives you a completely different answer?
Because there is a real-life case that puts this entire novel to the test. It's a story that happened just about a decade after his book came out, and it offers a stunningly different conclusion about what happens when kids are left to fend for themselves.
This is the incredible, true story of 6 Tongan boys who got bored with school, stole a boat, and got shipwrecked on a deserted island back in 1965. The setup is almost identical to the novel, but the outcome? It could not be more different. Instead of falling into chaos, they built a functional, cooperative community and survived for 15 months before they were rescued.
I mean, the way they organized themselves is just astonishing. They didn't just survive, they thrived. They set up work schedules and teams. They figured out a way to resolve arguments with a mandatory timeout. They took care of each other. When one of the boys broke his leg, the others nursed him back to health. They built their society on teamwork and empathy, not violence and fear. And that leaves us with this final, fascinating question. Which story is the real one? Is our true nature the darkness that Golding saw in the chaos of war? Or is it the hope demonstrated by 6 boys who, when faced with total disaster, chose community over chaos and cooperation over conflict? The answer to that? Well, that might just define what you believe is possible for all of us.